I've seen it change. I think the thing I would say is I've seen it change from more of a movement where people were volunteering to do the work. They were doing it because of a commitment to community through community mediation programs and community boards, to then people realizing, hey, this has got some legs. And now let's see if we can start to institutionalize it a little bit more into the courts, into state and county and city agencies. I was part of that myself, helping in San Diego with the city attorney's office, doing a mediation program out of the city attorney's office. So I think that has been the biggest shift, is from that movement to more of a profession, but still combined with the movement aspect. So it's kind of an interesting blend, I think, of the two.
Well, this is kind of a joke, but it really wasn't at the start. When I started training lawyers, which was in 1980, maybe 5 or 6, Michael Keating and Len Riskin and I had a gig, and we went all over the world, actually, talking to bar associations and law firms. And our introductory icebreaker joke was, well, we're going to be here talking about mediation. Mediation is not meditation, and it's not medication. And that always drew a laugh. Everybody always thought that was funny. And it turns out now, here we are 30 some years later, and it turns out that yes, it's mediation, but it's also meditation, and it's also medication. So it's kind of come full circle to being remarkably accepted in one generation by one of the most powerful professions in the world.
The thing I talk to my students and interns about is that this really is more like the field of medicine than other practices, that there is an art and there's a science, and that the field of medicine has that whole, the internship aspect, and that really getting with people who have practiced for some time and asking them to be clear and intentional about what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it, to be thinking like a mediator is really critical, and to be to be critically thinking about what are the different values we have as mediators that I'm putting into practice at this moment. So it's kind of that bigger sense on the one hand of what do other people do, and then what am I doing? So it's that combination of the two is what I advise.
I always thought when I started that when I was teaching in an exotic country through a translator, that's what I meant by cross-cultural mediation, which was great and got a lot of stamps on my passport. But what really is the issue now to me is the cross-culture of age, gender, neighbors, class, race, all of those issues that just cry out for some form of collaborative, sensitive, humane problem solving.
Well, Charles and I were talking about this when we knew this was going to be a question, and what we were both talking about is that this really has been, as I said at the start, a life path for both of us, right? To really use these skills every day. And so we don't really notice that if we're using techniques, we certainly don't try and use them to trip each other up ever. But instead, my practice, where I'm facilitating and mediating large groups, is all about how do you keep people's curiosity and engagement in a conversation. And I think that what Charles and I, well, I'll speak for myself, what I have found is that we have managed to keep engaged and keep curious. And when we're not, then that instead tells us we're tired, right? It's not because we're checking out. It's because, all right, Charles is tired today. I'm not going to, come in and say, hey, listen to this. Let's talk about this for a minute, right? So there's that observational aspect and technique of just seeing when does somebody want to engage, and then just using what we do in mediation to say, okay, so is this what I'm hearing you say? Yes, yes. So there's a lot of yes ands in our conversations, as opposed to yes buts. And so that would be what I would say, that we're not using it to trip each other up, but we're using it to engage. And here we are 30 plus years on, and we don't see any end for this. So
what someone told me a long time ago about cross-cultural mediation was that the two most important skills you can have are curiosity and humility. And I think that both of those are really true. I mean, curiosity, obvious, but I am humble enough not to expect what Donna's going to believe or say after 32 years. I'm humble enough to realize what a great resource Donna has been to my personal and professional life. And it sounds a little sappy coming from someone like me, but it really isn't. And so we hit the jackpot, and we're really lucky, and hopefully that will continue forever.
well, we actually learned a tip from our dear old friend, deceased, Sid Lezak. And he and his wife, Muriel, had been married for, I think, 55 years when he passed. And what we asked them, we said, so what's the trick, you guys? And they said, well, never go to bed mad. And Sid said, and always do what she says. I think it works really well.
When we train together, Donna and I, we have a good acronym that I try and always find, because I tend to talk too much. And the acronym is WAIT. Why am I talking? To just constantly reflect on,
That's funny.
Is this really so important that I need to interrupt her and make my point? Do I really need to mansplain this for her, or can she figure this out for herself? Am I really going to be this mad at her 3 days from now? So why bother now? I think just why am I talking is a good reflective exercise. And I say it to myself all the time. Donna.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Next question.
Why, Charles?
Why? She has a personality that attracts people to her. And I remember about 3 years ago, we were doing a large group mediation in Southern Oregon. And the Oath Keepers arrived in full camouflage with sidearms and rifles in the gun rack. And I was terrified. And our client had a buzzword. So if we heard that buzzword, we all knew which door to go out of, because there was something showing. And it was very, very, very tense. Wow. And 45 minutes into it, there's a great photograph that we have of Donna smiling, of course, with all these maybe 10 Oath Keepers, which are a militia group in Southern Oregon, all smiling too at the camera. And she had totally disarmed them by just walking up and saying, hi, we're so glad you're here. Can I show you how this works? And I thought that is really instructive, that she is a person without fear. She has enough control over her ego to be available. She has terrific skills. I like to follow in her footsteps.
Yeah, I would say the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, especially during this pandemic, and knowing the psychology of how the brain is all of our brains are overloaded with stress right now, and really trying to watch my snappiness, because I've noticed that I'm not usually a snappy person. I think Charles would agree with that, but I have certainly noticed over the last number of months that stuff happens and I feel my adrenaline shoot up like it hasn't in decades. So I think that really paying attention to that, and giving myself a break, and not doing the, oh, people have so much worse than me, but just saying, hey, here's what's going on for me right now, accept it and try and move into it rather than away from it. And and being a pill.
I miss my friends who live in Europe, and I've spent enough time there that I have them, and they're very close to me, and Zoom just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a two-dimensional guy, and I'm looking forward to seeing Richard and seeing Mark and seeing my friends again, and wondering when that can be.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for asking us to do this conversation with you, Claire.
Oh, thank you. It's
Charles
been
said,
fun.
who's going to interview us? And I said, I'm pretty sure it's Claire, because I don't want to talk to anybody but Claire for this. So
Really.
And that's the
Thank
one
you,
snippet
Claire.
that we're going to use. I'm just
Yeah,
going
there
to
you
put that
go.
on the homepage. There we go.
That's right.